I'd really like a way to be able to see myself through the eyes of Source.
Well, that's what we've been talking about all day, but especially in this last segment. We're asking you to listen for the feeling of that. And so that just takes a little practice. We could tell you what it's like, and we could tell you what we see, but that's really not so helpful until you actually do it. That's what that last little segment was that we were offering to you. We can give you some clues. You're doing it when you're at your happiest. Frequently, Esther will be having a conversation with a friend or friends, and as the conversation gets going, suddenly she can feel herself covered with goosebumps. And she knows that it's because the conversation gathered enough momentum that non-physical is really flowing with them. Esther wants to demonstrate her goosebumps in evidence of the connection that she can feel, because even though the words that somebody is speaking, it might be Esther and it might be one of her friends, but somebody just said something that was what Source knows about it. And so in this moment, they're having a conversation from the perspective of Source. Do you ever find yourself just welling up with appreciation?
I do.
That's one of those moments. Do you ever find yourself feeling an impulse to do something with no reason to do it, but as you're doing it, you can feel the rightness of it? That's you living through the eyes of Source. And you'll do it more now that we've done a little bit of a sales job to convince you that in every moment that you are focused here, awake and focused, that Source that you're reaching for is focused to you and through you. And that negative emotion is you pinching that focus off. And really, really good feeling emotion is you letting it flow. It's really obvious, isn't it? When you're doing it and when you're not doing it.
The when, yes. The how to go from pinching it off.
But don't do that. All you got to do is focus on the when. And pretty soon you'll start figuring it out. For example, don't you notice that it happens more often when you are doing something that you really want to do? You're out there sort of free. Don't you notice that it's when you're observing something more beautiful?
Mm-hmm. That absolutely.
And so as you start noticing the things that you're doing that are more conducive to it happening, then you can do more of those kinds of things. It's a little conditional, but it's beneficial in that regard. Or what Esther has profoundly come to know is that on the days that she takes the time to tune herself through meditation, the day is magical. And on the days that she thinks, I'm just too busy to do that, not so magic.
Okay.
Words don't teach. It's only life experience that teaches. And now that you accept that your inner being is after you, now you accept that your inner being is right there interested, the very best experience Esther ever had. We're going to relate it to you because it was so meaningful to her. She and friends had been playing for a few days together, and Esther's grandchildren and some children of some of them were part of the mix. So there were 3 generations of them playing table games, having dinner together, frolicking together, and having so much fun over a period of time. And now it was time that everybody was sort of going to their own houses, and Esther was left with one friend, and they had gone to the fish market to have lunch. And Esther was talking about how delicious it is to her that she gets to see these little kids discovering who they are, and how fun it is to watch them in alignment or out of alignment and making adjustments, and how fun it is to frolic herself like she's one of them, and how fun it is for them to witness that too. In other words, how fun that harmony and synergy is, how delicious it is, and how fun. This was the part that Esther really felt strong when she was saying it. And how delightful it will be in all that is to come to get to witness all of these dear hearts in their own personal state of becoming. She was just salivating over it. And Esther's friend said, "Oh, Esther, that must be how our inner beings feel about us." And when her friend said that, oh, the goosebumps flowed and tears are coming down their face, because she knew for sure that her inner being is aware of her and loving her and loving the objects of her attention, loving her family and loving her friends and loving. And that when she just lets herself feel what we feel, how good it is to her. And so that accomplishes for you a number of things. Your awareness that that exists, that it's real, that you have access to it, and that you can tune to it anytime you want, and that the more you tune to it, the easier it is. The easier it is. It just gets easier and easier.
So I've gotten a little stuck with
old thoughts.
Sure, they've been around a while, yeah. But it's the ones that are dependent on outside things for. So an external force has at one point brought me happiness. And it was fantastic. And now things are changing. And that wants to still
so just
bring that
focus
back.
for a moment on, because even the story we told was a little bit conditional in the sense that Esther was focusing on lovely time that they'd had together. But the thing that we really want you to hear is that in the conditional love, focus on conditions and then have an emotional response to it. In the conditional love or the conditional hate, in the conditional, you really don't have control over the conditions. You're just sort of an observer of them. In the unconditional love, which is what quieting your mind will do for you, quieting your mind takes all the conditions away and allows your vibration to rise so that you're seeing through the eyes of Source. Your question could not be more perfectly pointed to the very thing that we are wanting to convey in this segment. Take a cork's bobbing on the surface of the water. Let's call that alignment. Hold it under the water. Let's call that negative emotion. Let's call that misalignment. Let go of it and it will bob right back to the surface. Let's call that alignment again. Let's call that the receiving mode again. So your question is, how can I see through the eyes of Source? Well, you got to let your cork bob. You've got to stop thinking the thoughts that hold you down here. Because if you're doing it conditionally, then you got to do usually a whole lot of controlling. Sit down, be quiet, behave, don't do that, don't do that.
It's exhausting and impossible.
And impossible. It's impossible. But when you understand that all you got to do is get your cork to bob, and it'll do that anytime you quiet your mind, and then show yourself how easy it is to quiet your mind, and then allow your vibration to rise. And even though maybe in the first 5 or 10 or 15 settings you're not really even sure that you've got into the receiving mode, if you keep doing it, for sure, you will know. You just got to show it to yourself. So the unconditional love, you've been hearing about it a lot, haven't you? Unconditional love is loving in absence of any conditions. So your inner being just is that. And when you allow yourself to tune to that, then you are that too. And then you take that alignment and you flow it into the world. Hear the difference in this. You're going to like this. So conditional love is looking around for good things. Oh, there's one. Talking about it, showing it to others. There's one. Now we're all looking at this condition and we get a little bump in our vibration because we're looking at something good. So we're using the condition to cause the rise in vibration. Got it? Unconditional love is meditating because it's what I do. Quieting my mind because it feels good. Quieting my mind and allowing my vibration to rise. And then in my connection, finding conditions that are pleasing to me or causing creation that is pleasing to me. It's the cart before the horse and the horse before the cart thing.
Connect first.
Connect and then look. Don't look to try to connect. And most people are trying to adjust conditions so that they'll feel better. And then they get lost in the process because there's too many conditions to sort out and there's too many different people with different intentions. There's just too much to see. But if we can convince you that your vortex has already done all the aligning, that your vortex has already made everything blend, that your vortex has already done all the work, and all you got to do is find some way to quiet your mind and come into alignment with that, then all of this starts flowing into your experience. Unconditional love, unconditional living, unconditional succeeding, unconditional prospering, unconditional. The energy creating the conditions, not the conditions creating the energy.
Yeah.
Abraham, I want to know how I can see through the eyes of Source. Hear how that question that brings that only answer? Abraham, I want to see through the eyes of Source. Abraham, I want to create unconditionally. Abraham, I want to tune into the energy that allows everything that I've been asking for to just begin flowing into my experience in these comfortable, perfect, unfolding ways. . Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there. I spent quite a bit of time trying to get into a form of business that I've been in, and in the last year, well, the year before the last, it was like extremely booming for me. And then last year, it seemed like the business was done with me, you know? So I started to transfer my energy into other things. Like, okay, well, maybe it's time for me to start. I'll take this time as a form of the universe and my inner being telling me that there's more for me to do and I need to start doing.
There always is more for you to receive, always more.
Right. So I started to try to put my energy and time into other things. And it seems like all of those things are kind of hitting a little bit of a glass ceiling.
Well, when you're trying to figure out what to do and doing it rather than feeling the inspiration to do it, there can be a little bit more bumps in the process. But we have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
So can you feel how in the first scenario where your business was just sort of taking you along, can you feel that there was momentum? Can you accept that there was momentum underway even before you really knew there was momentum underway? This vortex that we've been talking about carries a lot of momentum. And so sometimes you're in a receptive mode relative to part of what's going on in your vortex, so you allow it to play out more easily. Sometimes people will say to us, you will resonate with this, they will say to us, I'm new to you, Abraham, and I've only been listening for a little while, but all kinds of things that have been sort of log jammed up are now flowing. And we say, well, it's because you've been asking and asking and asking, and something about what you're receiving from us has you more open than before, so you're letting it flow. The thing that we really want you to hear, and this is what you've been suspecting, in fact, it's what you said to us just now, is that the same time that you're letting some parts of your vortex flow into your experience, you are also putting more things into the vortex that will flow later. It's like there's always more in the pipeline. And so, if you don't get too pointedly focused on what's manifesting, and if you just keep enjoying wherever you are, it's like this is coming along and comes to fruition, but about the time it peters out, your words were interesting when you said it felt like that was done with me. And we wanted to tease you a little bit and say, but were you done with it? But usually it's the same. It's done with you because you're done with it. But at the same time that this is being done, something else is coming into fruition. And as it is petering out, something else is coming. And as it is, something else is coming, because the interest is always in the new. Where it's happening is in this unfolding. Once it has manifested, unless there's more growth in that, unless the business is expanding to you in all kinds of different ways, it will always peter out.
Wow. So does that mean, like, I guess it kind of makes me question that, should you always just be okay with never, putting that extra energy or effort into sustaining something that was, rather than just always being allowing?
We want you to feel the difference between feeling a real enthusiasm to do something in your business and the feeling that you need to do it in order to keep it going. Because when it's the feeling that I need to do it to keep it going, you're working against yourself. When it's I want to do this, that's a whole different feeling about it. You can keep things moving along to some extent just through your action and attention. You can. In other words, once something's in motion, it's not that difficult to keep it in motion. But for someone like you, unless it's really ringing your bells, you're bored with it. And when you're bored with it, it's done.
Wow, yes.
When you're bored with it, it's done. When you're bored with it and now you're doing it because you need to or because somebody else needs you to, it's not long. You have to keep breathing new life into things, and they need to keep breathing new life into you. And the thing about it is, your inner being knows where all of those ideas are and what will ring your bells the most.
That's beautiful.
Sometimes, in the meantime, since your business is still underway, you can revive it while other things are getting underway, just by making lists of positive aspects about it. Or here's a really good tool. Remembering how you felt in the beginning of it, in the really beginning of it, before it even really was a business, when you were just dreaming about it, thinking about why you wanted it. So when you feel enthusiastic about your business, it brings more and more to it. When you don't feel enthusiastic about it, when you want it to enthuse you rather than you unconditionally being enthused, feel the difference?